don't forget to do that. I'm kind of like, it's going to be super interested to see how it goes tomorrow with the air meet.
Yeah.
It'll be, yeah, I mean, hopefully it's going to be okay. Yeah.
I think it's pretty intuitive.
It looks pretty intuitive. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just trying to force quit all of my folders, so it's not as confusing while I'm presenting a screen.
The dinner went well. It looks like, what about 50 people signed up, 48 or something like that.
Yeah.
Which was a really good result, given that we kind of really only had about 2 weeks to promote it, really, didn't we?
Yeah, and I don't know how much Ariana spent on promotions either.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's I've had a look at who's coming, and there's going to be a good crowd of people. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And how are you feeling about that?
Pretty unprepared. I'll work on that some more tomorrow, but sort of trying not to get into my own head about it too much, because I think the key to that sort of facilitation is, talking like you're in a living room a bit, and then letting people say whatever they want.
Yeah. Are they all going to be kind of like, is there going to be like a little stage or something where they're going to be on stools or seats or something?
I think there's definitely high stools at the venue.
Yeah.
So I've requested that we sit up on those.
Okay.
So it's more visible. Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and I believe people are here. Some people.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many people are coming?
It's really hard to know. Well, here's Pablo. I think hopefully about sort of 15 to 20, but we will record and share later. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Pablo, hola.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, Pablo.
Hi, Pablo.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. Hello. Sorry, but I try to use Meet to participate.
Oh, right.
But sorry.
Welcome. It's it's good to see you. You're joining us. Whereabouts are you in Argentina at the moment?
At the moment is 6:15.
6:15. Okay, you're up very early. And whereabouts in the country? In qué ciudad?
My city is Santa Rosa.
Santa Rosa, of course.
Sí. It's not a big city. It's a small city with agriculture, landscapes. It's not Buenos Aires.
All right. Okay. George, do you want to? I think we can make a start.
Yeah, absolutely. So, is everybody all of you admitted?
Is everyone what?
Nick, are all of the attendees admitted, or they you don't have to admit? Everyone's just listening.
Everyone has the link. Everyone who got the link will be able to kind of like join progressively. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We will get started. So hello and welcome to everybody who's already joined in, and obviously to our wonderful and for staying through. So this evening it's really exciting because it's the night before the Urban Agriculture Forum kicks off, and we're really thrilled to host this event as well as a few others earlier in the week as a start to the Urban Agriculture Forum, and obviously it's part of the Urban Agriculture Month, which is the first ever national month celebrating the urban ag growing movements. And we're really thrilled with the forum that's starting tomorrow to have over 50 speakers and a wonderful dinner in Melbourne tomorrow night as well. I'm Georgia, part of Sustain the Australian Food Network. We also have our Exec Director, Nick Rose, here. and Madeline Tolson from the team. So thank you to Sustain for putting this event on. I'd also like to acknowledge that I'm on the Wurundjeri country and I recognise the traditional custodians of this land that has never been ceded and pay respect to the elders, past, present and emerging. And I encourage everybody who's in the chat to say hello to each other, hello from us to you, and recognise what country you're on, if you can. So this evening, we're going to be talking about international urban ag, and we have some beautiful examples from around the world, thanks to Pablo, Merrin and Natalie. So just to introduce our speakers with a little bit more information, we have Pablo, who's an agriculture engineer, and do jump in, Pablo, if I'm misrepresenting you. But he graduated from the agronomy faculty of the National University of La Pampa in Argentina. He has a PhD in urban studies, and his thesis was related to urban ag in the city and the forms of resistance and dominant power adaptations in that. We also have Natalie Keene, who's Australian, now living abroad in Norway. And I dare say that on top of being an agroecology expert, Natalie, you're also one in community supported agriculture. So I very much look forward to hearing about those projects. And we have Merrin Layden of 3,000 Acres, who's representing the Orchard project from the UK this evening. So she lived and worked in London for 5 years, delivering community gardening training programs, establishing urban food projects. And yes, very excited to present on behalf of the Orchard project tonight, as am I to hear. So I think to start off, we might throw to Natalie first, just so we can get her perspective from Norway. So hello, Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm speaking from Oslo, from a bedroom that I've been in for many, many months, a little bit too long. So it's been a very long winter here. Yeah, I'm going to talk about community-supported agriculture, eller andelslandbruk in Norwegian. We have a very special model of the way CSA is done here in Norway. I'm going to share my screen. Madeline or Georgia, let me know if this doesn't work. It's cool? Great. Yeah, as Georgia said, I'm an agroecologist. I studied agroecology. I'm going to say this because I think some people might be interested. I studied it here in Norway. And Norway, just so you know, I want everybody to know, Norway has free tertiary education for everybody. Anybody from around the world, international students, pay nothing also. So look into it. Norway's a fantastic place to live. There we go. So here I am. I'm in Oslo, down in southern Norway. And the farms that I run are situated within Oslo, just on the outside of Oslo, and just south of Oslo, 24 minutes by train or a 35-minute drive. I'll tell you about my 3 farms very soon. But I'll just do a quick introduction into what is community-supported agriculture. It's CSA for short, but it's not the other CSA. It's not climate smart agriculture, which comes with a whole heap of baggage. Look into that one. It's community-supported agriculture. It's locally based. It's a solidarity economy model of agriculture and food distribution with mutual benefits and shared risk. That's the definition that comes from our international network of community-supported agriculture called urgency, eller urgency, depending on which language you're trying to say that from. In all cases, a CSA is a short food chain with a membership marketing structure. So if we start over here on the left of these 2 scales, box delivery to the door or a box pickup centrally or a box pickup on a farm is often farmer owned or owned by a cooperative of farmers, a group of farmers. And and right down to the other end, which is where Norway sits. So the 3 farms that I run are community owned. They're not-for-profit structures run by a board of community members and started by community members in collaboration with farmers. And here members harvest all of their own veggies. They do some work as well as paying for their membership. And they're also involved in the farm in other ways, involved in things socially. They use the farm as like a place for picnics, but also social events. And we hold courses and things like this. I'll talk more about this soon. The other thing that's also a little bit unique about Norwegian CSAs is that our membership is for 1 whole year. Our growing season is quite short. And so people are with us for the whole year. Not all CSAs in Norway are community owned, though there's quite a few that are farmer owned. I think it's about 55 to 60% are farmer owned. Our CSAs are based on the agroecological principles of knowledge sharing and participation. So here are a whole heap of people involved in garlic planting. The farmer, not always myself, but on 2 of the farms, I'm the farmer. We can outsource tasks, all sorts of tasks to our members. Most of our CSAs are actually urban. And some are, like one of the ones that I work on, that I'll show you soon, is peri-urban, but not all are. But I do find that one of the things that makes our model work in Norway is a really great public transport system. So public transport goes to the countryside, once an hour or whatever. So members can get out to these farms really easily. Our members are super active. Not all of them, sure, but most of them are super active on the farm. Like I said, they harvest themselves. That does take a little bit of work to teach them how to do it, but they're more motivated to do different things. And what and they kind of created this model that we're looking at. Then the next one only started in 2008. And in 2014, we suddenly see a huge jump. And right now, as of yesterday, the meeting that I just sat in with our national network, we've heard that there are now currently 95 CSAs in Norway, 6 new ones this year. 26 only have shut since 2006 for varying reasons, from financial to also just changing back to a different model of sales, maybe a more conventional model of sales, or the farmers moved off, or the styre split ways. The board split ways. So this is one of the farms where I work. It's called Dystujorda. Dystujorda means the gloomy ground. It is a bit foggy, it's a bit windy, it's quite often cold, but we grow all of the veggies that we can in Norway. Nobody's going to get any pineapples or mangoes or anything like this here, but we do grow, standard veggies. And on all of the farms, it's around 80, 85 varieties of different things. So I'm a permanent manager there. I've had this job for about 4 years now. We rent just 1.4 hectares from a farmer, and this farmer, it's on a really old farm, and it's right in the middle of this university town. So this is where I went to university. The town is called Ås. It's 6 years old, and there's a price of 1 adult share. So they get, out of that share, it's 1 year membership. They get social events, courses, and as well they can whatever's available for harvest, they can pick enough to sustain themselves each week from between the end of June to mid-November. Through winter, they'll still be able to get things like kale and Brussels sprouts and things like that, but nothing major. The ground is frozen and the snow is thick. Here's my next farm. I'm a new staff member there. We just started there a couple of weeks ago. we, as in me and all of the members. But the farm is 2 years old now. This is its 3rd year. It's another not-for-profit, and we get it rent-free, actually, from the municipality. Within Oslo itself, there's several historic farms that are maintained by the municipality as living museums and classrooms for school, outdoor classrooms for school. So they're like petting zoos kind of thing with, but you know, some of them do have like, you know, a small functioning micro dairy or whatever. On this one, it's a lot of old buildings. A lot of people have their horses adjusted on this farm. And then in 2019, they decided to turn one paddock full of kikuyu grass, to my frustration, into a CSA. The guy that started as the first farmer there didn't listen to me and my colleagues when we said, make your paths wide enough. So one of the things about our CSAs is we've got to adapt the design of our farm, the width of our bed, the width of our pathways, and the social spaces to suit people that aren't used to walking on farms, because all of our members have access to the farm 24/7. So you can see here, this old girl, she's trying to walk along a path through a forest of kale, and the path is just not wide enough for her. So just a couple of days ago, the former farmer said to me, Nat, you might have to widen the pathways. I couldn't believe it. Thanks. Here's my dream farm. This is Kyrkjeby, which means church village. It's just on the outskirts of Oslo, meaning it's a 45-minute bike ride from the centre of Oslo. And most of our members live about a half an hour bike ride away. We redesigned it and shifted the field up from just below the raspberries to now just above the raspberries, if you can see the raspberries in the bottom of this picture, just last year. And we redesigned it to suit this active participation model that we have here. So right at the heart of our field is, you know, your zone 1, where everybody hangs out. Our herb bed, perennial bed is there. There's tables, there's a wash station, there's the compost there. And we're going to build a pergola this year, and it's where our greenhouse is. It's where our the hub of our watering system is. And we've got a driveway all the way through it so that we can get in with different sorts of inputs and amendments when we need to. Yeah, so I think that design's working really well. It's working well for the members, but it's also working well for me. And also, in recognition of that, we last year won Oslo's Garden Prize, which was fantastic and very exciting. I got on the front page of the Toowoomba newspaper for that in Queensland. They called it an international gardening festival. It's not, it's just because I'm overseas. It's just an Oslo competition. Here it is again. Show you my little dream farm. So this is a really historic farm. It's the oldest farm registered in Oslo, registered from the 15th century. Just over on the left of this picture, you can see a big lake. That's Oslo's water source. So we have to be really careful with our our fertilizing and compost and use of manures and things. And we also can't swim in it, which is killer. You know, on a hot day when it's a stinking 24 degrees in summer, I stare longingly at the water, but I can't go near it. And just over on the left also, if you've got a big screen, hopefully you can see the top of the ruins of a historic church from the 12th century, right there, right next to the farm. Pretty amazing to be working in this environment. So our community-supported agriculture farms here in Norway are not just all about veggies, but the ones that I work on are. In our biggest, as in biggest geographically, CSA farm is on 20 hectares. It's a family-owned farm, and it's called Virgenes Gård. Gård means farm in Norwegian. They have meat and eggs, milk, honey, grains and flour, and veggies and herbs and potatoes. And you can mix and match your shares to get what you want. So me as a vegetarian, I could get my flour, my veggies and herbs, and get an egg share too if I wanted to. I don't need honey because I'm also a member of the next CSA. This CSA is the local buzz Andelsbierrechtelag, beekeeping, community-supported beekeeping. It started just a couple of weeks ago in Oslo, so we're the first group of members that it's got. It's not just honey though. The woman is a fantastic friend of mine from Turkey who's running this CSA, and she's teaching us how to be beekeepers. She doesn't want us to just take the honey from her. She wants us to participate in the whole process with her. So this is our first checking on the hives after winter, just last weekend. I'm a beekeeper, but now that's what I'm doing. It's pretty amazing, this participatory model of CSA. So I'm getting a little notification that my internet is not stable. I hope everybody can hear me. Georgia, can you give me a nod? I can see you.
Yeah, so you've dropped out a little bit here and there, but you seem to come back quick, so that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. Just pose any questions in the chat, everybody. If you miss something critical, just write it now and I'll answer later on in the question time. So I want to introduce to you this concept of dugnad. Dugnad is central to Norwegian community-supported agriculture model, and it's something that doesn't exist in our neighbours in Sweden. It doesn't exist in other parts of Europe as this really strong cultural construct. The Norwegians are super proud of this concept of helping each other, participating in working bees. And that's why I think this type of model could work in Australia. Sure, the public transport thing might be a bit of an issue, but it would work in urban areas for sure, this model. Because also in our urban agriculture scene in Australia, doing working bees is part and parcel of what we do. Lots of volunteering for each other and helping each other out. So Sweden doesn't have it. Their CSAs are completely different to ours. Here in Norway, this concept of dugnad is historical. It's based on, living in a really pre-war. This country was one of the poorest in Europe, and they, had to help each other out to do things. And the seasons are tough here, really tough. So even if you're verbally at war with your neighbour, when they call a dugnad, you are there and you're there to help. So I call a dugnad a couple of times a week. Basically, I'm down to not doing very much physical work and labour myself. The members do it all for me. And I supervise them and facilitate them. And I, at the start of a dugnad, I do a meet and greet and force these very kind of, Norwegians are quite quiet, quite shy people, and they don't like to, or don't feel comfortable interacting very much with strangers, but I make them do it so that the dugnads are fun and friendly and they're getting to learn each other's names. I have a big jobs list that is really visible and really easy for people to understand. So these jobs don't just sit in my head. I'm constantly explaining why I'm getting people to do things in teaching moments. So here's us on a field that I used to work on a few years ago down by the sea in Oslo, literally right by the beach. And so we could just go swimming here after work. That was good. So I'm showing people the flowers of the calendula and the seeds forming in there. And these group of 4 members then took on the calendula patch, which was huge at this farm, for the rest of the season. They clipped off the heads of the old flowers and they collected all the seeds for us for the next year. And I just, got them to do that because I showed them what was happening in that plant. So it's all about mentoring and nurturing those people in the membership base that show commitment, that show interest. It's a very pedagogical, that word sounds very weird in English, pedagogisk approach. I'm often calling a halt to working bees and saying, teaching moment, everybody come over here and look at what I'm seeing. So I'm teaching people to observe things on the farm too. So what also drives our members' ownership and collective sort of responsibility of keeping the farm running well, other than just getting their own vegetables from it, is that our social activities, which are also supported by me as the farmer and manager, but driven by them. We have dugnads or working bees with picnics and barbecues afterwards. So we have those facilities for a fireplace, and we have a barbecue on the field for them to use. They can also use that whenever they like. They can have a couple of friends up and have a picnic there, have drinks on a Friday afternoon. That's fine. We have tours. I run tours for members throughout the season so they can, see what I'm seeing. They can understand the plants because they're not used to them. And they might not know what they're looking for when they're going to harvest. They also might not know when what they're looking for when I need them to do a lot of weeding in a bed. Yeah, we have shared harvesting, or I encourage harvesting at the same time and say, everybody meet on a Saturday if you want to harvest together and meet other people. But really, you're free to harvest, in the middle of a night on a Friday night if you've got a hankering for pizza. It's totally up to the members. We run courses, basic food stuff like fermenting, sourdough. We'll do beeswax courses to make ointments or beeswax wraps, and edible weeds. That's a big thing right now because the only thing that's growing is the weeds. We won't have any crops available here until, the June. Maybe in the greenhouse we'll have them in late May. Yeah, if it's good weather. We have a big harvest feast party, which is a really, from what I've been told from our members in my farms, that it's a really, a very historic thing to do at the end of the harvest season anyway, for a village to participate in, a big harvest feast. Usually it's a big party. Corona is stopping us from doing that. Last year we just made dinner at home and sat on Zoom together. It was a bit sad. We have 3 major meetings each year, an AGM, where, everything gets decided. We have a spring meeting where we present the growing plan, but we also organise working groups. So these working groups I've found to be a really great addition to the model, because a group of people who are interested in growing herbs then take responsibility for that for the rest of the season. Or a group of people who have some skills to do some building will take the responsibility for building things that we need, like the compost bins or tables and chairs, a washing station on the field. And a winter meeting. A winter meeting is where we do brainstorming for improvements for the year. And I get feedback on how things were run, what crops were desired and what crops maybe people didn't like. Things do go wrong. With so much participation, I have to let go of control. And I think it takes a special type of farmer to therefore run this type of CSA in Norway. They have to be good communicators, good facilitators, and really welcoming of people onto their farm. And I have very little, control or attachment. Attachment's the right word, to when things go wrong. It's all about that shared risk. So sometimes the row covers are left over. We have terrible butterflies and moths here that eat all of our cabbages. And I just share that as a, picture on Facebook or in a newsletter each week and say, hey guys, if you don't put it down, you don't get any cabbages, it's up to them. One thing I haven't done for a few years is also thin my carrots. I make a PDF, I send it out to all the members and say, you can harvest your baby carrots. At the same time, you're doing me a favour and thinning them out so that we all get big carrots at the end of the season. Compost. I haven't turned the compost for years. I have an active working group doing the compost. This isn't one of the working group members. This is my fabulous husband. Not looking impressed that he's doing it. Another thing I haven't done for years is staff a stall to promote the farm, to get members each year. So the members do that themselves. And they're the best, I think, people to do that, because they are telling from their own experience. I'm a member. I've been a member for the last couple of years and it's fantastic. And I get all my food here. So they're doing the marketing for us. And that's part of their hours requirement that they have to do each year. We have different types of shares. We really try and focus on being as inclusive as possible. Because there's lots of working involved, I don't want to only restrict membership to the fit and healthy. We have normal vegetable shares for the fit and healthy. We have experience shares for, say, school groups or companies, political parties, or organisations that just want to come to the field to have a picnic and get shown around by me or anybody else. And those experience shares cost very little, and they just they have the right to come to the field just 3 times a year. And no veggies are included in that. But we have sponsored shares and donations, and people are allowed to donate to the farm, and then we'll commit to working with a not-for-profit social organisation or the Social Security government agency to find a low-income family to give those shares to. We have working shares for lower income earners where they only pay about $200 Australian dollars for all of their organic food for 6 months, but they do about 26 hours work on the field. We have harvest help and a good friend system set up from amongst the members who volunteer to help harvest food for people who are disabled or not able to walk on a farm on those rough pathways. Maybe people in a wheelchair, or suddenly somebody's broken a leg. So we have this sort of system of volunteers within our membership to help each other out. So the communication that I share with my members is evidence-based and it's values-based. My values of openness and connection and empowerment to them are really obvious in the way that I communicate, and I communicate with them once a week. So I survey each year. This is what I mean by evidence-based. I survey each year, and I know that members, I ask them what they want to hear from me, what they like hearing from me. And the first thing that they say is that they want to know what they can do on the farm. So being good at communicating what are the jobs when I'm not there, having a chalkboard, having an app where they can see the job list, that works really well for them. They do want to know about the problems on the field because they want to know why the lettuce is all gone, or why are the slugs on the potatoes, or something like this. They also want to know about the successes. They want to know the tasks that I'm doing. They are interested in my work on the field, and they want to know when something's finished. They do want to learn how to grow veggies, but they're not so interested in that specifically. And ecology, field ecology, is at the bottom of their list. So I, every week, thought that sharing all of this information about all the animals and the life on the field that I'm seeing, that I'm fascinated by, was something that my members were interested in too, and they're just not. It's at the bottom of the list. Out of 6, they don't care when I share wildlife pictures with them, so I'm going to share them with you. Some cool toads on my field. They eat the slugs. We've got a huge slug problem. These slugs are invasive and they're terrible and they're massive. We've also got these little critters, these larvae that live in the soil of the mayfly that eat the roots of our baby plants. Once I found a nest made out of stones from an endangered bird. That was amazing. And also the bumblebees. I just think it's amazing. This wildlife here is just completely different to Australia. And although it's bleak and grey and brown outside and there's nothing green yet, and it's still cold, the queen bumblebees are out now. Here's my harvest message. Each week I send this out to our members during the harvest season. Which, again, starts in June and goes through till I stop sending these in October, mid-October. I tell people what they can harvest, where it is on the field, and show them a picture of what it looks like, because they might not know, how to pick it, and how much they can take. Also, I'll throw in a recipe too. But I encouraged my members to share recipes amongst themselves in the different communication apps that we use. maybe Facebook, but maybe another app, for example, Trello, that we use to share experiences, share recipes, share tips and tricks. Finally, this is a picture of a dugnad, a working bee that just happened on Sunday. This is what everything looks like right now up at my picturesque favourite little farm. It is brown and grey and the ground is frozen, rock hard. And that lake, Oslo's water source, is ice still. But we're up there, we've started the Dugnadder, and members are running Dugnads at the moment by themselves. They just send me a message and say, I'd like to run a Dugnad today. What's the task list? I'll gather people and we'll do it. And it's just great. All right, that's it from me. I'll stop sharing now.
Wow,
thanks for listening.
Much, Natalie. That was truly incredible. Thank you. And I mean, so much to dig into in terms of the methodology of CSAs, but also I'm sure you've got so many warm and fuzzy stories that I'd love to hear as well. But we'll just come back to that at the end. And I'm sure if there are any extra questions, I'll say this as a note now, for people who are watching, put them in the chat. And even if we don't get around to them, I'll send them on and we can try and get some answers that way as well. But I might go to Pablo now. Now, Pablo, at the end, you'll be available for Q&A, but we do have a video from you just because the internet reception isn't super good, as I understand. So I'm going to share my screen now and play that. So Maddie, just let me know if there are any troubles. Okay. And I'm going to make that full screen. Can everybody see that? Awesome. Great. I'm pressing play now.
Hello to everybody. My name is Pablo Ermini. I am presenting this work titled The Urban Fringe of Intermediate Cities in Argentina, an opportunity to develop sustainable forms of agriculture. This work was doing with my colleagues, Maria Rosa Del Prino, Fernando Escolar, Javier Vitale, Fernanda Hernandez Toso, and Oscar Valentinus. All of them are part of my organization. It's INTA, National Institute for Agricultural Technology, and also they are part of the same space of projects, platform of projects, dedicated focus on this topic of rural and urban dynamics, peri-urban land use and conflicts. So the work is limited in this area. We focus our view the ecoregions of Pampas. This is a huge area dedicated to agriculture, were transformed very, very deeply during the 90s. You know that in this decade, start to implement not only in Argentina, also in Latin America, a very, very strong neoliberal politics. So this in this period was an increment of new technologies associated to pesticides and biotechnology. So mixed farming starts to disappear, and animal raising moved to all these marginal areas. So all these technologies, we say in Spanish, paquete tecnológico, support new possibilities of work in scale, and the good price in the global market reinforce business and financial links. So all this make a very, very high impact on ecosystem, was very big, the transformation on rural economy and lifestyles. So what happens in this scenario in the cities? Here in the map, I show you, it's not all the towns, it's not all the place where is population, only is a selection of, we say, intermediate cities where population is has a branch range. This area particularly, the social demand is rising about protect cities of pesticide pollutions and other possible impacts of agriculture. So take force the provincial legislation. This is my province and this is the province where work my colleagues. But better is say that take force the social pressure to politicians to make it legislation about use of pesticides and legislation about land use. So city administrations install some tools as buffer zones, like a response to these social demands. This is the case of my city, but in all cases of these intermediate cities happens the same. Is that the administration create this land, this area where here in the red zone, for example, is prohibit the use of pesticide for agriculture, and in the yellow zone is very you can apply pesticide, but it's very high regulated. So in this area, the process was a transformation with very high level of conflicts. We have the idea, the project had the idea that these new urban areas, these zones where it's regulated, can be a chance to transform not only the food system, also the rural and urban life. So as a consequence of this process, political and social process, start to arise interest, very, very strong interest about new forms of production, agricultural production, as alternative for these specific areas, this fringe. And like I said before, these sound like a promise also to develop a local and sustainable food chain. But in the other side is the dominant logic of city production that constrains the idea of a good dynamic between urban and rural land. I won't say the city sometimes is thinking about refuse agriculture, and this is not the idea of the project, is not the idea for me about a good integral plan to change and to link urban and rural life. In this field of high level of conflict, is participating several areas of knowledge related with human health. And each day is participating, is calling more and more people and more disciplines like ecology, economy, sociology, planning, and urban planning, rural planning, and others. And very diverse actors, multiple actors that are involved on this process, political and social process, like university, professional leagues, farmers, social movements, students, and others. So on this scenario, INTA, the project of INTA, try to foster the multidisciplinary labor via the co-building of knowledge that links actors, disciplines, and very, very important, link the political decision makers. So one of the activities that we promote with the project is mapping the areas that we will regulate for these new instruments. Try to know about what is happening in this land, identify production units and the main characteristics of this. So collect data about what kind of agriculture are you doing in this area, collect data about other use, because it's not always all land for agriculture, and this land dedicated to other activities, no agriculture activities. It's very important to think about the design and the planning of this fringe. And this collection of information, this process of mapping, is not only watching from the air, is a work in the land with the people, with the actors. So we do surveys and interviews with agriculture that is living there, is producing in this space. This is very important for the project, the qualitative data, not only quantitative. So we collect opinions, perceptions about the problems, and receive possible solutions. We take the advantage in these moments also to give technical advice about use methods of practice that adapt to the new restrictions, the new regulations. So one of the objective of the project also is produce, generate reports, information to take decisions about the future of the use of the land, and allow a good assess about environmental risk. Also, this kind of information, this kind of reports, also help to foster our interdisciplinary work, like a team. For example, one work that we are starting, that is collection, the analysis of normative and legislation about use of urban and rural land, because it's not in all the country is the same legislation. Depending of the place, they change. Some other of the very important activities of the project is promote, encourage this process of education and agriculture training with diverse ways to see transition. This for me is very important activity, because we promote in the community not only one mode to change the model, if not try to include a very high diversity of alternatives, like agroecological approach, organic methods, biodynamic, BPA standards. All this is like is changing the perspective, but not one for one. If not, trying to include diverse, another diverse perspectives all together, like family farming, indigenous agriculture, feminist movement that is very, very important now in my country and in all Latin America, and community agriculture neighbors. So to make a synthesis about what is the objective, what is doing, and what is the main challenge of this project is improve this is for me maybe the most important, or one of the most important challenge of this project is improve the participation of the community to city planning. When I say city, I say urban and rural lands. Generate a vision of agriculture as vital part of city life. Encourage a plan of agriculture in the cities in the way of diverse ways, no? Is ecosystem service, cultural knowledge, women empowerment, and others alternative views. So all of this with the component of technology, try to develop technology of input and process adapt to sustainable communities. So I want to say thanks to listen, thanks the organization of Urban Agriculture Forum to receive a proposal to speak here. Very good organization. Thank you very much. If you want, if you decide, take contact with us. This is my contact, and this is the contact of the project coordinators from INTA. So thank you very much.
Do you sometimes find the fear of what could happen is making nothing happen in your life?
It just started auto-playing, my bad. Thank you so much, Pablo. That was really, really fantastic. And similarly, would be really interested at the end to hear about how you're...
So internet doesn't cut. Thanks.
That's our pleasure. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And
thanks to you.
I encourage anyone to put some questions into the chat, because I would love to hear more about that project, Pablo. And last but hardly least, we're going to throw to the wonderful Merrin, who's been sitting there quietly. So hello, Merrin, how are you?
Good, yeah. So big acts to follow, and I'm really pleased to be part of this panel tonight. So I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry, let me get this one out the way. So, I'm talking from Melbourne, and I'd like to also acknowledge the land of the Indigenous people where I'm based, which is also the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. If you're not from this country, that we've got international guests, or you're not very aware of the Indigenous culture and history of food growing in this area, but also all across Australia, I highly recommend doing some research on that. And Bruce Pascoe's Dark Emu is a really great example that just lays out all the evidence for the work that has come before us kind of for millennia in this food growing space. And I work for 3,000 Acres in Melbourne, which is an urban agriculture organisation. But as you can see from the screen, I'm here to talk tonight about one of my favourite projects that I've come across and have worked for in the past, called the Orchard Project in the UK. It's a charity which is the only national organisation dedicated to the planting, restoration and care of community orchards in the UK, and we think globally. And the work that they do is focused on urban orchards in the biggest cities in the UK. including London, where the organisation started off, and then it has expanded to Manchester, Leeds, Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Cardiff in Wales. So it covers all of the kind of British nations apart from Northern Ireland. Just a brief word about me. I'm based in Melbourne now, but I was living in the UK for 3 or 4 years, and I've been back for about that long again. And I worked for most of that time with the Orchard Project, which at that time was just 4 of us in an office in East London. And just before I left, with a partnership, a funding partnership, we were able to expand to a national reach. But there's me working on an estate in southeast London, planting orchards, which just really took me to the most amazing places and opportunities to be living in a foreign city, and exploring it through food growing and community work is a real privilege. So the vision of the Orchard Project is to have everyone in the UK cities within reach of a well-cared for community orchard. Having worked in 7 cities so far, they've certainly got a bit of a way to go, but the organisation believes really strongly in the massive role that community orchards in urban areas can have in improving people's lives. And that's through providing training, providing kind of community building activities, through contact with nature, and also in the provision of free fruit through improving nutrition. And so the organisation does focus its efforts in areas with the highest kind of levels of deprivation, and prioritises groups from challenging situations. The story so far, so the Orchard Project did have a 10-year anniversary last year, and over the last decade have planted, restored and supported over 550 community orchards in the UK. The Orchard Project don't own any orchards and don't manage land in an ongoing way, but their role is to support the communities who they work with to plant the orchards, to manage them from the beginning, from the design process to planting and looking after them into the future. And I guess the beauty of the organisation and their real strength is their ability to really engage people and excite them around the kind of theme of orchards through organising events and training opportunities. Every year they have a wassail in the middle of winter, which is basically a pagan orchard celebration, which involves a great big party with a fire and some cider and, a lot of dancing and hilarity. And there's some kind of, scaring away of the winter spirits that might damage the orchard, with lots of noise and banging of pot lids and that sort of thing. So really by just, I guess, bringing interest to the orchard spaces that aren't just about the trees, but evoking a kind of remembrance of history and really a cultural experience that is common to people, to civilizations all over the world and cultures all over the world, of that orchard experience. So why are orchards so important? By 2050 in the UK, 90% of the population will be living in urban areas, and globally that's expected to be about 70% of the population. I think probably everybody here is aware of many of the benefits of having green spaces in urban environments, for health and for for mental health, for physical health, for community well-being. And although in lots of areas there is a certain amount of green spaces, in London it's actually quite high. There's about 42% of London is open spaces, but those spaces are often not very high quality. So they may be green and have grass and a few trees, but aren't really nurturing people's well-being and spirits kind of in the way that they could. And so orchards have a really great role to play in that space. The project, the organisation, the Orchard Project, does some really great work in monitoring and evaluation and tracking kind of the benefits that the project brings. So they survey all of the groups that they work with on an ongoing basis and after events, and kind of each engagement they have with them. 95% of their volunteers feel more connected to nature. And I think the beauty of the orchards, which technically can be anything from 5 trees and up, but ranges from more like 10 trees in one orchard up to orchards of 50 or 100 trees, depending on the location. They do have some big ones over there. But they're an amazing opportunity to take advantage of some of the small pockets of land in these dense cities that a community garden maybe, or a community, an agricultural model might need more land, but an orchard can really transform some of the small spaces that exist. And so I think in that way, the orchard model is distinct maybe or complementary to community gardens, because they're available not just for people to come and engage in an active way, but they're also accessible for passive enjoyment, as well as for those more active times of working bees and community involvement. But they're by their nature, typically the most of them are open and therefore accessible to the general community to access, as and when they like, and so that nature connection and the benefits from that are really widely available. This is just a little snapshot of an orchard in very central London, in East London, on the Wenlock estate, which I helped to plant. So the picture in 2012 was the planting day. I don't have one of it before any of the trees went in, but essentially this was a piece of land that sandwiched between some of those distinctive kind of London housing estates, that was just used as a dog run, and so it was covered in dog poop and no one really paid much attention to it. When the orchard was planted, this is 10 years later on the right-hand side, it really transformed the space and became a location where people started to respect the space a bit more, using it for picnics, for birthday parties and other social events. People would be sunbathing there. There is a pond, a little, a pond feature in the orchard now that has frogs living in it. The biodiversity and the kind of benefit to the local people has been massive. So just to show that sort of transformation there. One of the big strengths of the orchards is similar to in the farms in Norway, is actually those community gathering opportunities. So beyond the food benefits, which do come eventually, actually it's building community relationships and connecting people with each other in their local areas, and bringing them out into public spaces in a really wonderful way. But one of the focus points, I guess, of the Orchard Project as well is thinking about sustainability of the orchards and therefore sustainability of those community connections. It can be really disempowering for people to be involved in an orchard where they've grown fruit trees which don't thrive and are really stunted, or maybe destroyed and vandalised. You could see in that previous picture where the trees do start off being put in a cage in a prison, and that was a planting design that was come up with through experimentation and experience in these really urban areas where the trees would be stolen or broken really quickly. And so when they're young, they get really cared for like that and locked away, and the cages get opened up for maintenance. But as they grow older and are more established and are kind of more part of the, more an ongoing part of the environment, then they get released and are able to kind of fend for themselves a bit more. But sustainability of the orchard is really a kind of thought through detail in the way that the project works. So when a local group of residents comes to the organisation interested in planting an orchard, they are there's a bit of an assessment done of what capacity they have and the land and the site that they have available and that sort of thing, but also the community assets and resources they have in terms of people power. And then they're enrolled in this program that's not just about planting trees and kind of walking away and letting people get on with it, which I think there are a lot of projects in the UK that are really focused on tree planting, particularly around, climate, taking action on climate and that sort of thing, but that don't necessarily have the follow through. And so one of the really beautiful strengths of the Orchard Project is that their design involves a 5-year package of engagement with the groups and typically ongoing beyond that. So orchards that were planted right at the beginning will still have an engagement with the project if they need it and where they want extra support. But from design and planting and aftercare of the orchards, each of the orchards is kind of co-designed with the community group to reflect local needs, maybe the history of the communities that are engaging with them might be very UK centric, and so lots of apples and pears, or it might have a larger community of maybe South Asian residents and they are interested in damps and plums, as for cooking and that sort of thing, in a more traditional sense of their food practices. So the orchards really represent the diversity of the communities where they're based. And so part of the engagement from the project is around building the group dynamics and really working on governance and sustainability of the organisations that or groups of residents who manage those orchards. And I think that the success of the organisation's approach of the Orchard Project is represented in they have a 95% tree survival rate, which is pretty outstanding really in such an urban environment where the tree's survival is reliant on watering from the local residents and avoiding vandalism and theft and that sort of thing. So currently they have about 8,400 fruit trees in community use. Some of those are 10 years old, so they are becoming quite fruitful now. And then also some of them, the other aspect of the Orchard Project's work is in heritage orchards, and so they have done a lot of work restoring beautiful old institutional orchards across the UK that were associated with hospitals and asylums going back to the Victorian era. And so there are orchards that are 150 years old that the project has been able to bring back to fruitful production. And as a site for engagement with the community. Just checking where I'm up to. So really strong kind of outcomes around the orchard. Some people, in my experience of working with groups, they would be really excited about the fruit and have this image of being able to go and harvest fruit quite quickly, and then through the process of engaging with them and designing the orchard and talking about all the different things that they might benefit from having that space to gather and work in, actually, as is common, I think, with lots of urban agricultural projects, the social and community well-being is often so strongly balanced with the productive side, and I think you need the people, the people and the strength of the community around the people is so much part of the success of any of these projects. Just here we are. So the model has this 5-year 5-year work in progress, and it starts off with this really beautiful hands-on design process. They've got a life-scaled model of trees and elements of a community orchard that the groups can work with to really visualise the space that they're going to create, including the fruiting trees and also other elements of the orchards that they introduce around more of a food forest style production, bringing in other benefits from productive plants. I covered that. During COVID, as I'm sure most of us have experienced, that the challenges of COVID and isolation have really fallen most heavily, I guess, on urban, particularly in urban communities in London, in the UK, they've experienced, and people from lower socio-economic areas and what they call BAME communities there, or we would call called communities, linguistically and culturally diverse communities. And so the organisation Orchard Project has always sort of prioritised working with groups in areas of highest need. One of the other successes of the project is a real focus on continual improvement and skills development. In the staff team, I had some amazing opportunities to work with really dedicated and in specialised orchard skills people. Pomologists is the technical word for apple experts. And so there's a really a feature of the model is a high quality, engaging and inspiring training program for the orcharding communities, and that will range from ongoing training for the groups who are managing the orchards, as well as non-accredited training for volunteers who want to build up their skills to be involved, and masterclasses for the general community in improving orchard management more broadly in the UK community. As the organisation grew and developed and became more involved in some of these big heritage orchards that have a really significant production potential, they also became really engaged in harvesting and looking at ways to extend the availability of the produce, so through dehydrated fruit, but particularly more into cider and juices. And so their organisation set up a social enterprise called London Fox, which is harvesting from fruit all over London. The project was primarily focused there, and harvesting fruit from orchards and turning it into cider and juice and returning a proportion of those products back to the orchards in exchange for their fruit. But it's been a really successful model that is opening up opportunities for the project in partnering with other cider manufacturers and kind of corporate partnerships, that sort of thing. Since 2016, when that cider production really got going, they have rescued 38 tonnes of apples and pears to turn into cider and juice across London. Increasingly, I think the organisation is highly conscious of climate change and the impacts that that's already having in the species and varieties of fruit that can be grown in the UK, but also the challenges that will bring to orchard growing and urban orchards. And so as a way to kind of combat some of those challenges, the Orchard Project are looking at forest gardens as a natural extension of a community orchard concept and practice. And so from the beginning of that design process, really working with groups to help them understand the benefits of polycultures and different plant systems within the orchard, and focusing right from the beginning on soil building and kind of new and innovative techniques of improving and building soil resilience through ramial mulching, which is kind of small diameter, fresh wood mulch that's laid as a mulch in the orchard to build the fungal profile of the soil. Having more of a diverse polyculture of plants within the community orchard gives people more activities, so it provides an opportunity to engage people throughout the year. Orchards and fruit trees can be fairly self-sufficient for long periods of time in the year, and so ensuring that you can continually engage the volunteers and the communities in the orchard is easier when there are different seasonal plantings or fruitful bushes and that sort of thing that we'll give through the year. It extends the season of edible produce from a nutrition point of view, with the goal of improving people's access to fresh and healthy local fruit. Then having a variety of plants in the orchard is also beneficial. And as a kind of natural extension of this work around building the orchards more broadly into food forests, one of the initiatives that the Orchard Project is looking at now is larger scale planting of fruit and nut trees as a way to improve food security on a more significant level. And so they're doing some feasibility studies on looking at peri-urban, larger scale food forests, and as a way to sort of apply forest gardening principles to climate proof the community orchards, and really increase the impact that they can have on a food level as well as the community engagement level. So I guess just one last, I think I've got a couple of slides. So from the very beginning of the project, learning and education was a strong feature of it, and working initially with the orchard leaders, who are the volunteers who manage the orchards and have ownership of the orchards, through to realizing that we needed to keep extending their skills over time, and in response to the changing needs of the orchard as it grew with the group. There's the non-accredited training that runs through the year and is available for free to those orchard members, and there's also the Orchard Project has kind of expanded the resources and support available to the community groups by offering accredited training to people beyond those groups and beyond the immediate orchard volunteers. And so they have a level 2 qualification in community orcharding and a level 3 qualification just coming in forest gardening, and as a way to increase the support and resources they can offer to the community groups. They will use some of those community orchards as a training ground and for their students to practice on. So just really the students benefit from going out and talking to the orchard volunteers who see those orchards every day and really have a lived experience with them, and the volunteers and the community groups at the orchards benefit from having kind of masterclasses run in their orchards on a regular basis as they need the extra support. And quite an exciting opportunity at the moment is that their new accredited award in forest gardening, which is a collaboration with Martin Crawford at the Agroforestry Research Trust, is available to register for now, and you can attend and participate from overseas. So if you're interested in gaining a bit more knowledge in that space, I highly recommend. The calibre of the teaching that the Orchard Project offers is really great. And yeah, pre-registration's open for their level 3 award in community orcharding. Contact details there. this presentation, I think, was last delivered to a group in Russia who are involved with an orchard that was around when Tolstoy was alive, and it was based around his own private orchard. So they certainly like to share and collaborate with groups internationally. So I think that's where I'll leave it now.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I think already from where I'm sitting, it's been really fantastic this evening to hear such different projects, but, you know, the continuing theme throughout all of those being, you know, the principles of caring for community, which is, you know, part of what we're talking about with the Urban Agriculture Forum, but, you know, also the climate resilience. And I like to think, and Pablo, perhaps you can speak more to this, you know, that aspect of individuals becoming activists in the spheres that they can, and whether that be something, you know, as simple as having access to and harvesting a small amount of apples from the Orchard Project, or helping someone in the CSA, you know, who isn't able to harvest for themselves. You know, all those micro actions are really inspiring to me. And I think that's a really amazing future for us to look forward to and hopefully expand. So just to go, we've got probably about 5-10 minutes for questions, and I see that some have been answered in the chat already, which is fabulous. Thank you for that. But I think one of the questions that we didn't have an answer for was from you, Natalie, to Merrin on the soil. So do you want to do that amongst yourselves?
I'm asking about soil pollution because I'm currently working with the Oslo municipality for them, and we're introducing a lot more growing fruit trees in parks, and we're just finding our parks are polluted to high heaven. Yeah. What did you find in the UK?
Yeah, and that's a really common situation in urban soils all over the world. And the Orchard Project, we did a bit of research, both kind of literature review, but also some real life studies and testing the soil and testing the fruit. Typically, orchards are an ideal, a perfect use of land that are a bit contaminated. If it's not, you know, too extreme, in really, really extreme circumstances, you want to be remediating or removing the soil. But fruiting crops typically don't secrete the toxins in the fruit, so they would be considered a fairly low risk use of the land for productive means. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And if there are any more questions, now's the time. I'm just going to put it out there in case anyone's been thinking, oh no, I won't ask that because that seems stupid, but I'm sure it's not. But I might just quickly ask a few that popped up to me, and I hope are relevant to others. So Natalie, I was really, I'm really interested in the CSA model, and seeing it so successful in urban areas is obviously something in Australia we'd love to see more of. Can you think of any barriers that exist in Australia that are sort of different in Norway in terms of, I don't know, it might be local government backing or community cultural differences, anything that, you think is a barrier in how we might address that?
I'd say in terms of regulation and policy, we're fairly similar. Similar barriers there. For example, we in urban areas, we're not allowed to use compost on vegetables that we make ourselves. The compost has to be tested by our food safety authority first, if those veggies are for sale. But then a community supported agriculture kind of model gets around that. We're just composting our own waste on the farm, and then we're not selling vegetables, we're selling a membership. So the Food Safety Authority are like, well, the legislation specifically says something else. So that kind of works. So it's about those sort of maybe little, really small nuances. But one thing I would say that makes it work really well is, in an answer to another person's question, is this, that Norwegian culture really emphasizes that our society here is built on this system called the trust system, where everybody's sort of, I won't say indoctrinated because that sounds a bit negative, but we're really kind of like, I think people have worked on from the beginning to be like, this is a really well-functioning welfare state, and welfare state functions because we can trust each other. We trust people to pay the right taxes. We trust people to get on public transport when they're not being checked. We don't have ticket beeping things, turnstiles that we have to go through. It's just open, and everybody has a ticket. Well, most people do. And so that's what we run our self-pick on. So that trust system is talked about through school. It's talked about as being a well-functioning member of society here, and we don't do that in Australia as well as they do here. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of maybe like expected, but nobody talks about it or teaches kids that trust is how a society, a Western society, a democratic society should work. So maybe that's a really big thing. That's a big cultural thing. Otherwise, this dugnad culture here, I think that exists in Australia.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Very interesting. Thank you. And I think, I mean, I guess a way to model and build that culture of trust would be by starting in local communities with, community gardens and CSAs in the first instance, and hopefully getting kids into it more often.
Yeah, and talking about trusting each other to do the right thing. On the field. Yeah, and I remind my members of that each week. I trust you to pick the right amount of veggies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. So it's explicit.
Yeah, that's also probably something that Australian culture isn't super good at, is being explicit. We like to dance around, I find. And Pablo, I wanted to ask you, in terms of the communities of farmers that you consulted with as part of your project, what was their, if there is a general view on sustainable agriculture or increasing the elements of regenerative ag and, reduction of chemicals? Were they for that, or hesitant to learn and adapt to new methods of farming?
Yes, this is the problem now, because we have an agriculture system very depending of inputs like agrochemical herbicides, insecticides. This is the agriculture of scale that is in the border of the cities. So the problem is that first start but it's not the problem. It's an opportunity, no? Start the social pressure to politicians to demanding stopping the application of pesticides, reduce the quantities, start to a new model of production. So the government with the all others part of the scientific community that develop techniques and develop information and produce information, is starting to work very hard in found the way to reduce, to look for strategies to reduce the use of pesticide. So we are in this way, obviously with very high level of conflict in the society, and try to include, this is my special view and the view of the project, try to include all the perspective, make a mix, make a big mix to find the solution.
Great, thank you. And I was wondering, I'm so interested in the mapping components of your project, because, you know, that's such a rich tool when we're trying to plan cities and build agriculture into them. But obviously, I'm sure, as you know, takes a lot of work and a lot of time to do. And in those sort of two zones closest to the city, are there many community managed spaces in those areas for food production, or are they mostly individual farmers?
Yes, there are some experience, but it's not very rich area with food production. The problem now is that the legislation expand this area. If you see the presentation, the map is a red zone, and now is a yellow zone. So this red zone is a mix, is a peri-urban land. So there are other activities that sometimes is no agriculture. Obviously, is necessary promote the activity in this place, perhaps with this model of community support agriculture. But then the problem is in the yellow zone, where it's a farmland, and now it's very hard regulations, very limitations that the farmers can produce. This is now the big problem, because it's a very big area. We need a link the city with this type of agriculture and transform.
Wonderful, thank you. And with that, I think we've just hit the end, which is a shame. But I think, as I said before, if anybody has any questions, put them in the chat now, and we'll quickly copy and paste them, and we can ask them at a later stage. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to Natalie, to Pablo, and to Merrin for joining us this evening in the conversation. And thank you, obviously, to all of the wonderful people who've been chiming in on the chat below. It's been an absolute pleasure. And as I said at the start, this is the last night before the Urban Ag Forum kicks off. So I'm feeling excited. It's a really big celebration, and I'm glad I got to share this moment with you three. So yes, if anybody's interested who doesn't already know, go to www.uaf.org.au to check out what's going on for the Urban Ag Month. There's events around Australia. Tickets close, I think, this evening for the Urban Ag Forum stuff, if they haven't already, but we'll be recording those and you know, making those available as well. And if you want to support work like this, Sustain has memberships available. I'm sure you're curious little cucumbers and can go and check that out yourself at sustain.org.au. But yes, thank you all so very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure to have the conversation and to start with such a rich discussion from around the world, so we can take all those wonderful little lessons and bring them back home and have a thriving urban ag scene here. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Nick.
Ciao, Pablo. Gracias. Ciao.
La próxima conferencia la hacemos en español, Nick.
Ah, claro. Sí, sería un gusto.
All right, nice work,
Bye.
everyone. See you.
Okay. Bye, Natalie.